I've always believed my brother, Daniel, was born strong. Not because he lifted weights or fought anyone, but because he carried the world without showing it. He was the kind of man people leaned on without asking if he could handle the weight. Our father died when we were teenagers, and just like that, Daniel became the man of the house. People said it so often that it stopped sounding like a compliment. It sounded like a sentence. From that day, he became everything for everyone. He fixed broken pipes, paid bills, calmed Mom when she cried, and protected me from every little thing. But no one ever asked, "Daniel, who protects you?" He laughed easily, the kind of laugh that made people forget their own worries. He'd tease Mom when she prayed too long, or me when I cried over little things. He always said, "Life's not that bad, sis. You just have to be strong." But sometimes I'd see him staring out the window after everyone had gone to sleep. His shoulders looked heavy, even when he was standing still. And when I'd ask if he was okay, he'd say the same 3 words. "I'm fine, really." It became his favorite lie. Daniel worked 2 jobs after college. He never complained, never took a day off. He just said, "Money doesn't grow on trees," and laughed like it was a joke. But I started to notice things. The dark circles under his eyes. The way his laughter sounded forced when Mom said, "You're doing so well, my son." The way his hands shook when he thought no one was watching. He didn't drink, didn't smoke, but his silence was louder than any addiction. He smiled for everyone. Except himself. One night, I came home late from work. The lights were off except for the small glow under Daniel's door. I knocked. No answer. I pushed it slightly open. He was sitting on the floor, elbows on his knees, staring at an empty wall. His phone was beside him, the screen still on. An email open. Application declined. It was the 3rd job rejection this month. He didn't see me. He just whispered to himself, "It's fine. I'll find something. I always do." But his voice cracked on the word fine. I stepped back quietly. I wanted to hug him. To tell him he didn't always have to fix everything. To say, "Daniel, you can fall apart too. I'll be here." But I didn't. Because I didn't know how to. The world taught us that men are protectors. Not the protected. That they don't cry, they endure. That they don't talk, they solve. And I watched that belief slowly kill my brother from the inside. The next morning, he was back to normal. Smiling. Laughing. Acting like the night before never happened. "Morning, sis," he said cheerfully, flipping pancakes. "Hungry?" I wanted to ask about the email, the sadness in his eyes. But his smile was so convincing that I almost believed it. Almost. When I left for work, I saw his phone light up with a message. Final notice, overdue payment. He turned it face down before I could say anything. "Don't worry," he said. "I got it." And he always said that. I got it. Even when he didn't. Even when he was falling apart quietly. That night, I sat in my room thinking about him. How everyone called him the strong one. How every man I knew was told the same lie. That strength means silence. And I thought about how easy it was to say "I'm fine." How those 2 words could hide a storm so big, no one else could see it coming. Daniel wasn't fine. I didn't know how bad it was yet. But I could feel it. Like the air before thunder. Something was breaking in him. And none of us were listening. It happened 3 nights later. The rain hadn't stopped since evening. A slow, steady drizzle tapping against the windows. Mom had already gone to bed, and the whole house was breathing in that calm, sleepy silence. I couldn't sleep. Maybe it was the thunder. Or maybe it was the way Daniel's laughter at dinner had sounded, forced. So I got up to get water. As I passed his room, I heard something that froze me where I stood. It wasn't music. It wasn't talking. It was crying. Soft, broken, muffled. Like he was trying not to let the world hear him. My heart dropped. I pressed my ear gently to the door. His voice came through in pieces between shaky breaths. "God, please help me. I'm trying. I swear I'm trying." It was Daniel. My brother, the man everyone praised for being so strong. The man who always smiled, always joked, always said, "I'm fine." He was crying. Alone. In the dark. I didn't know what to do. Every instinct in me screamed to go in, to hold him, to tell him he didn't have to do this alone. But I didn't move. Because part of me didn't know how to comfort him. Nobody ever taught me how to comfort a man who never cries. I slowly pushed the door open, just a little. The room was dim, only the light from his phone screen glowed on his face. He was sitting on the edge of his bed, hands in his hair, his body shaking. The phone screen showed an email. Loan application declined. Next to it, a text message blinked. "We can't keep waiting for your payment. It's overdue." I didn't need to read more. I understood. My brother wasn't crying because someone broke his heart. He was crying because the world kept asking him to be strong when he had nothing left to give. And he didn't want anyone to see it. I watched him whisper to himself, "It's fine. I'll figure it out. I always do." The same words he used every time something went wrong. But now, they sounded more like a prayer than a promise. I backed away quietly, closed the door without a sound. Leaning against the wall, I felt tears sting my eyes. For years, I thought Daniel was unbreakable. That he didn't cry, didn't struggle, didn't feel the things I felt. But now I knew. He just hid it better. It's strange how men are raised to believe their pain is shameful. They can shout in anger, but not whisper in sadness. They can protect everyone, but never be protected. And in trying to be strong for everyone else, they slowly disappear. The next morning, Daniel was in the kitchen making breakfast like nothing happened. He smiled when he saw me. "Morning, sleepyhead." I studied him. The calm eyes, the easy smile. It was like the man crying in the dark didn't exist. "You were up late," I said carefully. He didn't look up from the frying pan. "Yeah, couldn't sleep. Had some things on my mind." "Everything okay?" He turned then, smiling wide. "Of course. I'm fine. You know me." There it was again. That sentence. His shield. "I'm fine." He said it so well, I almost believed it. That day at work, I couldn't stop thinking about it. His shaking shoulders. His whispered prayers. The way he cried like he'd been holding it in for years. And I kept asking myself, when did we start expecting men to hide their pain? When did we decide that their tears were weakness instead of truth? My brother's heart was breaking in silence. And the worst part was, nobody saw it but me. That night, I made a promise to myself. The next time I heard him cry, I wouldn't walk away. I would open the door. Because maybe all he ever needed was for someone to see him and not look away. The morning after that night, the house looked normal again. Sunlight through curtains. Coffee smell. Daniel humming like nothing was wrong. But once you've heard someone cry like that, you can never unhear it. He looked at me and smiled. "Why are you staring, sis?" I tried to sound casual. "You were awake late last night." He flipped the newspaper, pretending not to notice the question underneath my words. "Yeah," he said lightly. "Couldn't sleep. It happens." "Daniel, He looked up sharply, eyes suddenly hard. "Don't start. I'm fine." That wall in his tone, it hurt. Not because he was angry, but because I could tell he was protecting his pain like it was a secret treasure no one was allowed to touch. Later that day, I overheard him talking on the phone in the corridor. He was trying to sound confident, but the cracks in his voice were small earthquakes. "Yeah, I'll send it tomorrow, I promise. I just need a few more days, sir." Then silence. Then that fake chuckle he used whenever he was cornered. "Of course, I'm good for it. You can trust me." He hung up and rubbed his eyes. When he saw me, he forced a grin. "What's up, detective?" "Who was that?" I asked. He waved it off. "No one important. Just work stuff." "Daniel, stop lying to me." His face changed, tired eyes, clenched jaw. He sighed and dropped the act. "You really want to know?" "Yes." He stared out the window for a long moment before he said quietly, "It was the bank." I froze. What bank? The one I borrowed from to pay Uncle's hospital bills and Mom's medicine last year. They're asking for it back. My heart sank. But why didn't you tell us? We could've. He cut me off, shaking his head. You? With what? Your tiny salary? Mom's pension? No, sis. That's my job. I'm the man here. He said it like it was a curse. That night, I tried to talk again. He was sitting at the table, staring at his laptop screen. Bills and notices scattered around like wounds that wouldn't heal. Daniel, I said softly. You don't have to do this alone. He didn't look up. Yeah, I do. No, you don't. We can help. He smiled, a broken kind of smile. You know what happens when a man complains, right? What? He leaned back, laughing without humor. The first time, they say, you'll be fine, stay strong. The second time, they say, stop being dramatic, other men have it worse. The third time, they say, be a man. He looked up at me, eyes red. So we stopped talking. Because no one wants to hear a man's pain. His words hit me like thunder. I wanted to argue, but deep down, I knew he was right. Our world listens to women when they cry. It comforts children when they break. But when a man bleeds, it calls it weakness. And so they learn to smile while dying inside. Later that night, I heard him on the phone again. This time, to a friend. They laughed for a few minutes, then Daniel said, Bro, you ever feel like just running away? His friend laughed back. You're the strong one, man. Stop playing. And Daniel laughed too. But that laugh didn't reach his soul. It sounded like the sound of someone falling and pretending it's a dance. When he hung up, I walked in. He looked startled. How long have you been standing there? Long enough. You heard? Yes. He leaned back, exhausted. I wasn't serious. It's just a joke. I stepped closer. Then why do your eyes look like they're saying goodbye? He froze. And for a second, I saw the truth flash across his face. The truth he was hiding even from himself. He whispered, I'm just tired, sis. So tired of pretending to be unbreakable. And I stood there, staring at my brother. The man everyone called strong. And realized that maybe strength was just another word for loneliness. Her name was Amora. She came into Daniel's life like the first ray of light after a long, cold night. I met her one Sunday after church. Daniel brought her home, nervous for the first time in years. Mom, this is Amora, he said, scratching his neck like a shy schoolboy. Mom smiled warmly. Oh, so this is the girl making my son eat breakfast again. We all laughed, and for a brief moment, it felt like the sun lived in our kitchen. Amora was kind, the kind that didn't feel rehearsed. She noticed things others didn't. She saw Daniel's tired eyes before she saw his smile. And for the first time, I watched my brother breathe. Really breathe. He started sleeping more. Smiling without forcing it. Playing music again. Even humming while he washed dishes, something he hadn't done since Dad passed away. It was like Amora had reached into his storm and found the version of him we had all forgotten. One evening, I walked past his room and heard him talking softly on the phone. I don't know, Amora. I'm just scared sometimes. Her voice was faint, calm. Of what? Of failing. Of not being enough. Of everyone expecting too much. Then tell them you're tired. Men don't say that, he said, half laughing. She didn't laugh. Then start. With me. There was silence. Then Daniel whispered. You don't know how much I needed to hear that. It hit me like thunder. That was all it took, one person to let him be human again. Weeks turned into months. Amora became a regular at our house. They'd sit on the balcony, talking about life, dreams, and silly things that made them both laugh. But slowly, something changed. I saw it first. Daniel started pulling back. He'd answer her texts later. He'd stare at his phone, smile faintly, then put it down without replying. One night, I found him alone on the porch. He looked at the sky like he was searching for answers that refused to come. What's wrong? I asked. He shrugged. She deserves better. Better. You love her. That's the problem, he said softly. When you love someone, you don't drag them into your darkness. Danny, she loves you too. He smiled sadly. Yeah. But love doesn't pay bills. Love doesn't erase failure. Love doesn't fix me. He said it like a confession. Like he was already preparing to lose her. A few days later, I overheard them arguing. Not loud, but sharp, like glass cracking quietly. You never talk to me anymore, Amora said. You shut me out. I'm protecting you, Daniel replied. From what? Your feelings. From disappointment. She went quiet for a moment. Then her voice broke. I don't want perfect, Daniel. I just want real. He didn't answer. When she left that night, she didn't hug him. She just said, You can't love me if you never let me in. The door closed, and I saw something I hadn't seen in him before. Defeat. He didn't chase her. He just sat there, staring at the spot where she had stood. His hands were trembling. His jaw tight. I walked over quietly. He said nothing. But tears rolled down his cheeks. Slow. Silent. And in that silence, I finally understood. He wasn't scared of losing her. He was scared of her seeing the broken man beneath the armor. Because all his life, he'd been told men don't break. They rebuild. But what happens when the man runs out of bricks? That night, I heard him whisper through the wall. I don't know how to be loved when I don't even love myself. And I knew then. The storm inside him wasn't quiet anymore. It was getting louder. And the worst part? He was still trying to smile through it. After Amora left, Daniel didn't say much for days. He went to work, came home, smiled when spoken to. But the laughter was gone. Even the walls of our house felt heavier, like they were holding their breath. Mom thought it was just heartbreak. She said, he'll be fine, boys move on quickly. But I knew this wasn't about love anymore. This was about something deeper, something darker. Daniel wasn't moving on. He was slipping away. It started small. He stopped eating breakfast. He left home earlier, came back later. Sometimes, he'd forget to lock the door. Other times, I'd find him sitting in the dark, phone in hand, just staring. One evening, when he was in the shower, his phone buzzed non-stop on the table. At first, I ignored it. But when it rang again and again, curiosity, or maybe fear, got the better of me. The screen flashed. Debt alert, final notice. Then another. Loan company, immediate action required. My heart sank. I opened his drawer. Neatly stacked envelopes, all sealed, all from the same company. Overdue notices. Late fees. Threats of legal action. There was one at the bottom that wasn't sealed. It read, outstanding balance, 12,480 Ghanaian cedis. Failure to settle within 14 days will result in property seizure. I couldn't breathe. Daniel didn't own anything worth seizing except our house. And the house was in his name. He was paying for everything. Mom's medicine. Uncle's hospital bills. My school fees. Even the neighbor's electricity once, when their power got cut off. He carried everyone. And nobody knew he was drowning. When he came out of the shower, towel around his neck, he froze when he saw the envelopes spread on the table. He didn't speak at first. Just stared at me, eyes tired, hollow. Why did you touch my stuff? He asked quietly. I had to, I said. Daniel, this is too much. Why didn't you tell us? He looked away. Because what would that change? You can't help. Mom can't help. And I can't let her worry. But this isn't fair. I cried. You're killing yourself for everyone else. He smiled faintly, not out of amusement, but resignation. That's what men do, sis. We fix things. Even if it breaks us. I slammed the table. No, that's what you do, Daniel. You fix everyone and forget yourself. He didn't get angry. He just sat down, rubbing his temples. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. You think I want this? You think I enjoy pretending I'm fine when I'm not? Every night, I stare at those bills and tell myself tomorrow will be different. But it never is. Tears welled up in his eyes. I just wanted to give Mom peace. To make Dad proud. To make sure you never felt how I feel right now. His hands trembled. I thought if I stayed strong, everything would stay standing. But it's not, I whispered. You're falling apart, Danny. He looked up and for the first time, didn't hide it. I know. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house felt like it was echoing his pain. Mom kept talking about how blessed we were to have such a good son. If only she knew. I thought about those envelopes. Those red stamps that screamed final notice. And the way Daniel said, I just wanted to make Dad proud. He was fighting a war that wasn't even his to fight. And losing. The next morning, he left early again, earlier than usual. When I went to his room, the bed was neatly made, his desk cleared. Only one thing was left. A folded note under his phone. It said, "Don't worry. I'll handle it. Like I always do." No signature. No details. Just that one, haunting line. And as I read it, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, this time, he didn't mean the bills. Maybe he meant everything. The following week, Daniel became quieter than ever. He went through his days like a ghost wearing his own face. He'd nod when spoken to, smile when expected, but it was all automatic, mechanical. His laughter didn't even sound like him anymore. Mom didn't notice. She was too busy thanking him for everything he did. "You're my blessing," she always said. And Daniel would smile, kiss her forehead, and whisper, "As long as you're happy, Mom, I'm fine." That word again. Fine. The most dangerous lie ever spoken by a man who is breaking. One night, I passed his door and saw light seeping from underneath. He'd been in there for hours. I knocked gently. No answer. I pushed the door open. He was sitting at his desk, staring at his phone, typing, deleting, typing again. I didn't want to intrude, so I leaned against the doorframe quietly. His lips moved as he read what he wrote under his breath. "I don't know how to tell you I'm drowning, Amora. I don't talk because I was taught to carry. I don't cry because I was taught to hide. I push you away because I don't want you to see me fail. But I love you. I always have. Please don't think my silence means I don't feel." My throat tightened. He was writing to her. He still loved her. He just didn't know how to be vulnerable without feeling ashamed. He stared at the screen for a long time. Then hit delete. All of it. Gone. Like it never existed. Then he opened his messages to a friend and typed, "Bro, I'm good. Just busy. You know how it is." He sent that one instantly. It broke me. Men will write their truth in private. And send their lies to the world. "Why didn't you send it?" I asked softly. He jumped, startled. "I didn't see you there. I read some of it," I admitted quietly. He looked embarrassed, then tired. "I shouldn't have." "No," he said gently. "It's fine. I wasn't really going to send it. But you wanted to." He rubbed his face, sighing deeply. "What's the point, sis? Even if she forgave me, I can't give her peace. Love without stability is just chaos. You don't have to be perfect to be loved." He smiled a sad, hollow smile. "That's something people like to say, but reality's different. Nobody wants to build with a man who's still trying to find his footing." He looked at me with eyes so tired they didn't even shine anymore. "Do you know what it feels like when everyone calls you strong? But nobody checks if you're okay? When people think you have it all together because you smile?" I stayed silent. He didn't need answers, he needed to let it out. He continued, voice shaking. "It's lonely. Being the strong one is the loneliest place on earth." Later that night, after he fell asleep, I checked his desk. His notebook was open. On the last page, he had scribbled, "I can't tell them how heavy it feels. I don't want them to worry. But every night, it feels harder to breathe." There were tear stains on the paper. I closed the notebook slowly and whispered, "You're not alone, Danny. Not anymore." But he couldn't hear me. And I was terrified that maybe soon, he wouldn't hear anyone at all. The next morning, He was gone before sunrise. His bed neatly made. His phone left charging. He'd taken only his wallet and jacket. Mom thought he'd gone to work early. I wasn't so sure. Something about the way he'd written, "It feels harder to breathe," stuck in my head all day. When I called his phone, he didn't answer. Not once. Not even by evening. And for the first time, a small, cold fear whispered in my chest. What if this time, he's not coming back? He came home late that evening. Not his usual kind of late. This was different, the kind of late that smelled like exhaustion and surrender. He walked in quietly, hung his jacket on the hook, and stood in the hallway for a moment, not moving. Then he sat on the floor right there, shoes still on, and rested his head in his hands. I'd been waiting in the living room, pretending to read. When I saw him like that, something in me froze. "Danny." He didn't answer. I got up slowly, knelt beside him. His breathing was shaky, uneven. "Are you okay?" I whispered. His hands dropped from his face. His eyes were red not from tears, but from holding them back for too long. "I'm tired," he said softly. Not the usual kind of tired. This was a tired that came from the soul. "I know," I said. "You've been working too hard." He interrupted me, his voice cracking. "No. You don't get it." He looked up at me, eyes blazing with pain. "I'm tired of being everyone's solution. Tired of smiling when I'm breaking. Tired of being the man who never gets to fall apart." I didn't speak. He'd never talked like this before. It was like years of silence had finally found a voice, and it was angry, hurting, desperate. He stood suddenly, pacing the room. "They think I'm strong. You all do. Mom brags about me to everyone, says, 'My son never complains, my son takes care of us.' But do you know why I don't complain? Because the moment I do, the world stops listening." He clenched his fists, tears finally spilling. "Men don't get comfort. We get judgment. You cry, they say you're weak. You stay silent, they say you're cold. You struggle, they say you're lazy. So what are we supposed to be?" "Human," I whispered. He laughed bitterly. "Human? There's no space for that where I live. The moment you're born a man, they hand you armor. And no one tells you it's made of glass." I couldn't stop the tears rolling down my face. I'd waited so long for him to speak. But now that he was, I didn't know how to carry it. He sat on the couch, burying his face in his hands again. "I'm so tired, sis," he whispered. "I feel like I'm disappearing." I reached for his hand. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, he let me hold it. It was trembling. So was mine. "Danny, you're not alone," I said, voice shaking. "You have me. You have Mom." He shook his head. "I have responsibilities." "That's not the same thing." "Please stop saying that," I begged. "We don't need a hero. We need you." His eyes filled again, not just with tears, but with disbelief. Like he'd forgotten what it felt like to be needed for who he was, not what he could do. Mom's voice suddenly called from the kitchen. "Daniel, your uncle just called. He needs help again, said it's urgent." Daniel froze. Just 1 second of silence, then he whispered, "Of course he does." He stood up slowly, wiped his face. "I'll send something tomorrow," he said flatly. I grabbed his arm. "Danny, stop. You can't keep doing this." He turned, eyes hollow. "What choice do I have?" Then he walked away, not angry, not cold. Just empty. That night, I heard him crying again. But this time, it wasn't quiet. It was deep, loud, unrestrained. The kind of crying that comes from a wound too old to hide anymore. I stood outside his door, hand on the knob. Every part of me wanted to go in. But something told me he needed to let it out first, alone. So I stood there in the dark hallway, listening to my brother finally break. And for the first time, I realized that silence doesn't always mean strength. Sometimes it's just the sound of someone drowning. Quietly. The rain had started again. It always seemed to rain when things got heavy, as if the sky itself couldn't hold the weight of what was coming. Daniel had been quiet all morning. No music. No humming. Not even the forced smiles anymore. Mom thought he'd just had a bad day. But I knew this wasn't another bad day. This was the day something would finally snap. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at his untouched coffee. Phone beside him. Eyes empty. I placed my hand on his shoulder. "Danny, you okay?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah." A lie so thin, it broke before it even reached the air. The phone buzzed. He looked at it, sighed, and walked out to answer. A few minutes passed. Then I heard his voice outside. Not his usual calm tone, this one was sharp, broken. "I told you I'd pay. Just give me time." A pause. "No, please don't come to the house. My mother doesn't need to know." The words hit me like a slap. I ran to the window and peeked out. He was pacing in the yard, phone pressed to his ear, shoulders tense. I said I'll get it. I swear. Just a few more days. Then he stopped. His head dropped. His voice cracked. "I'm trying my best." He hung up and stood there for a while, staring at nothing. The rain started to fall harder, but he didn't move. He just stood in it. Like he didn't care if it soaked him. Like he needed the rain to wash something away. I opened the door and ran to him. "Daniel, what was that? Who were you talking to?" He looked at me, startled. Then forced a small smile. "No one. Just work. Don't lie to me." I shouted. "I heard you. Who are these people?" He hesitated, then whispered. "The lone guys. They're threatening to come here." My stomach twisted. "Oh my God. Danny." "It's okay," he said quickly. "I'll fix it." "You said that last time." I snapped. "And look where it got you." He clenched his jaw, anger and shame mixing in his eyes. "You think I don't know that? You think I don't wake up every day wishing I'd done things differently? Then ask for help?" He shook his head slowly. "I can't." "Why not?" "Because I'm supposed to protect you, not scare you." That night, Mom was humming gospel songs while cooking. She was happy, completely unaware that her son was fighting demons no prayer alone could reach. She called out, "Daniel, your uncle said he'll stop by tomorrow to see you." He froze mid-step. His voice came out cold. "Tell him not to." Mom frowned. "Don't be rude. His family." Daniel's eyes darkened. "Family doesn't keep taking when they know you're bleeding." Mom gasped softly. "What do you mean?" He took a deep breath, then looked at me, not her. The message was clear, don't say anything. So I didn't. He forced a smile. "Forget it, Mom. I'm just tired." Then he walked away. That night, the rain got heavier. Mom went to bed early. I stayed up in the living room, pretending to watch TV. I heard Daniel moving around in his room. Pacing. Opening drawers. Then, quiet. The kind of quiet that didn't feel peaceful. It felt like a pause before something terrible. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "If I don't wake up tomorrow, just tell Mom I tried." My blood ran cold. I ran to his door and pushed it open. Empty. His wallet and phone were gone. His shoes, gone. Rain slammed against the window. I screamed his name. "Daniel." No answer. Only thunder. I ran into the night barefoot, the streetlights blurring through the rain. My hands shook as I dialed his number. No answer. I called again. Nothing. Then finally, his voicemail. His voice, calm but distant. "Hey, it's me. Don't worry. I'm fine." The irony almost made me fall to my knees. He wasn't fine. He was gone. The morning came, but Daniel didn't. Mom had barely slept. She sat by the window, her rosary tangled in trembling fingers, whispering prayers that sounded more like pleas. I kept pacing the living room, phone in hand, refreshing messages that never came. No texts. No calls. Just silence. We called his friends, no one had seen him. His boss said Daniel hadn't shown up to work, and that he'd been off for weeks. He'd turned in late reports, forgotten meetings. He wasn't himself, his boss said quietly. I thought he just needed rest. Rest. If only they knew he hadn't rested in years. Around noon, a knock came at the door. For a second, My heart leapt. But it wasn't him. It was a police officer. He stood there, hat dripping from the rain, voice low. We found his car near the old bridge. My breath caught. Mom froze completely. The bridge, she whispered. The officer nodded. Keys inside. Phone on the seat. No sign of him yet. I couldn't breathe. It felt like my body went numb, like the air itself had turned to stone. We rushed there. The bridge stood over the grey river, wide and merciless. Police tape flapped in the wind, and officers searched the water below. Daniel's car was parked neatly at the side, wipers still halfway across the windshield. Inside, his phone unlocked. On the screen, an unfinished message. I'm sorry for everything. I just wanted peace. Those words cut through me like glass. Peace. That's what he'd been chasing all along. But not this way. I screamed his name across the bridge, voice breaking into the wind. People turned, watching, whispering. But I didn't care. Daniel, come back. Please. Mom collapsed beside the car, sobbing. She kept saying his name like a prayer that might pull him out of the water. But the river said nothing back. Hours passed. The officers searched every inch of that place. Nothing. No body. No footprints leading anywhere else. Just silence and cold wind and the sound of our hearts breaking. That night, I sat on his bed, his jacket still hanging on the chair, his cologne faint in the air. I opened his drawer and found something I hadn't seen before. A small black notebook. The first page read, "For when I can't say the words out loud." I flipped through trembling pages. It wasn't a diary. It was a confession. A quiet scream written in ink. He'd written about the debts. About the pressure. About how no one ever asked him how he was doing. Only if he'd fixed something, paid something, handled something. Then I reached the last entry. The ink was darker, rushed, messy. If I'm gone, please don't hate me. I tried to be strong. I just didn't know how to be human anymore. My tears fell onto the paper, smudging his last words. I hugged the notebook to my chest and sobbed until my throat ached. He had been right here, breaking. And we never saw it. 2 days passed. Still no sign of him. Mom refused to eat. The police said they'd keep searching, but we could tell from their tone. They were preparing us for the worst. Then, on the third night, I got a call. Unknown number. A man's voice, low and unsteady. Is this Daniel's sister? Yes. I said, heart pounding. Do you know where he is? A pause. Then. He's here. He's alive, but you need to come now. The line cut. I stared at the phone, trembling. Mom's eyes widened as I repeated the words. Alive. Daniel was alive. But where? And who was that man? The rain started again outside. Soft at first, then heavier. I grabbed my jacket. I'm going, I said. Mom grabbed my arm. Wait, what if it's not him? I met her eyes. Then I'll find out who it is. Because I can't lose him again. And with that, I ran into the storm. The road to the address was long and winding, hidden between old houses and rain-soaked trees. Every drop on the windshield sounded like a heartbeat, fast, desperate, terrified. The man on the phone hadn't given a name. Just an address. And 6 words that refused to leave my head. He's alive, but you need to come now. When I pulled up, my hands were shaking too badly to even turn off the engine. It wasn't a hospital. It wasn't a police station. It was an old roadside motel, the kind that looked like it had secrets soaked into the walls. Room 6. That's what the man had said. I ran across the parking lot, rain biting into my face, and pushed the door open. Inside, the light was dim. The curtains were closed. And sitting on the bed, drenched in a towel, shivering, was Daniel. He looked smaller somehow. Not physically, but like life itself had been drained out of him. His eyes were red and distant, staring at the carpet. Daniel, I whispered, my voice breaking. He looked up slowly, as if waking from a long, painful dream. Hey, he said softly. Like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't vanished for 3 days and left us drowning in fear. I ran to him and hugged him so tight he gasped for air. But I didn't care. I needed to feel that he was real. "Where were you?" I cried. "What happened?" He hesitated, then whispered. "I went to the bridge, but I couldn't do it. My chest ached." "You mean?" He nodded. I stood there, thinking it would end everything. The pain. The pressure. The noise in my head. But then, a man found me. Said he saw me standing there and knew what I was about to do. He talked me down. I looked around the room. A tall man stood quietly by the window. He was older, maybe late 40s, his jacket soaked, his face calm but sad. He gave me a small nod. "He was lucky," the man said softly. "The river takes too many people. I couldn't let it take him." I whispered, "Thank you." He nodded once, then picked up his umbrella. "Take him home. He's had enough storms for one lifetime." And just like that, he left. Daniel sat there in silence, the sound of rain filling the room. "I didn't want to die," he said finally. "I just wanted the pain to stop." I knelt beside him. "You don't have to face it alone anymore." He laughed weakly, shaking his head. "People don't understand, do they? They think men can't break. That we're supposed to just swallow the pain, bury it, and keep moving. But you can only carry so much before it starts to crush you." His voice cracked. I kept telling myself it would get better, but it never did. Tears streamed down my face. "You're allowed to hurt, Daniel. You're allowed to ask for help. You don't have to pretend anymore." He looked at me, then really looked. And for the first time in months, I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Not joy. Not peace. But maybe hope. We drove home in silence. Mom was waiting by the door, wrapped in a blanket, eyes swollen from crying. When she saw him, she dropped to her knees. "Daniel," she whispered, "thank God." He knelt beside her, hugging her gently. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said through tears. "I just couldn't carry it anymore." She held his face between her hands. "Then let me carry it with you, my son." That night, for the first time, Daniel slept without his phone buzzing beside him. No calls. No debts. No pressure. Just the sound of soft rain and his sister sitting quietly by his door, guarding his peace. But even as the house settled into silence, I couldn't shake one thought. What happens when the pain comes back? Because I knew it would. And this time, we might not be so lucky. For the first few weeks, it almost felt like things were getting better. Daniel started talking again. He laughed, not the big kind of laugh, but enough to make Mom cry with relief. He'd sit by the window in the evenings, watching the sunset with his coffee, silent but peaceful. The world around him was gentle for the first time in years. No late-night phone calls. No shaking hands over bills. No hidden tears in the bathroom. Just calm. But pain has a way of remembering where you live. One morning, I found him sitting at the kitchen table, staring at his notebook again. The one where he used to write his thoughts when he couldn't say them out loud. This time, though, the pages were blank. No words. No ink. Just a pen resting beside it, untouched. "You're not writing?" I asked quietly. He shook his head. "I don't know what to say anymore. I feel empty." "Empty can heal," I said softly. He smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You sound like me a year ago," he whispered. That line chilled me. Later that day, he went out for a walk. Said he needed air. He was gone for hours. When he came back, he looked different. Not broken, just lost. His clothes were soaked in sweat, and his hands were shaking again. "Where did you go?" I asked. He hesitated. "The bridge," he said finally. My heart dropped. "Daniel." "I didn't do anything," he said quickly. "I just needed to see it again." I didn't answer. I just looked at him, the way you look at someone you love and realize they're still fighting a war you can't see. That night, he couldn't sleep. I heard him pacing in the hallway, muttering to himself. When I peeked out, he was standing by the front door, holding that same notebook. "Danny," I whispered. He turned around, startled. "Couldn't sleep," he said with a forced grin. But I noticed his eyes were red. He'd been crying again. He placed the notebook on the table and walked to his room without another word. The next morning, I found a new page filled out. His handwriting was uneven, rushed. I read slowly. They tell you to be strong. They tell you to man up. But they never tell you how. They don't see the nights when you can't breathe. When your thoughts turn into storms. When you're screaming inside but smiling outside. I'm trying to heal. I swear I am. But healing feels like walking on glass. You take one step forward and bleed for it. I pressed the notebook to my chest and cried. Because I understood. He wasn't asking for attention. He was asking for air. For permission to hurt without being called weak. That evening, Mom made his favorite stew. She talked about family, church, neighbors, anything that might fill the silence. Daniel nodded, smiled, even joked once or twice. But there was a sadness behind his eyes that I couldn't unsee. When dinner ended, he kissed Mom's forehead and said softly, "I love you." Then he looked at me. The look lasted a second too long. It felt like a goodbye, though no words were spoken. After he went to bed, I couldn't shake the dread curling in my chest. Something about that look, it wasn't peace. It was surrender. So I went to check on him. But his door was open. The bed was empty. His phone was gone. And on his pillow lay a folded note. My heart stopped as I opened it. "Don't follow me this time." I stood there frozen, the note trembling in my hands. "Don't follow me this time." The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. Mom was still in the kitchen, humming softly, unaware that her son had vanished again. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear my own thoughts. "Danny," I whispered into the quiet, but the house gave no answer. I ran outside into the night. The streets were half asleep, lamps flickering in the rain-soaked fog. I shouted his name until my throat ached, hoping he'd appear like before. Somewhere close, somewhere safe. But this time, it felt different. He meant it. He didn't want to be found. I jumped into the car and drove straight toward the one place that haunted both of us. The old bridge. My hands gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Memories rushed in like a flood. The first time he'd gone there. The way he said I just wanted peace. "Please, God, not again." When I reached the bridge, it was quiet except for the wind and the distant sound of water rushing below. The rain had started again, soft, then harder. I called out his name into the darkness. "Daniel." No answer. Only the echo of my voice fading into the night. Then I saw it. His jacket, lying on the railing. The same one he'd worn that night weeks ago. Cold. Soaked. Empty. My chest tightened as I looked down at the river. Dark waves. No sign of him. "Danny," I screamed again, my voice breaking. "Please." Lightning cracked across the sky. For a split second, I thought I saw a figure down the bank, someone sitting near the edge, head buried in their knees. I ran. Mud, rain, tears, none of it mattered. When I reached him, he didn't move. He just sat there, shivering, whispering to himself. "Daniel," I gasped, falling beside him. "Please, come home." He didn't look at me. His voice was flat, lifeless. "I told you not to follow. You think I could just let you go?" He laughed bitterly, a hollow, broken sound. "You're not supposed to save me every time, sis. One day you won't be there." I grabbed his hand. "Then let this be that day. Let me sit here with you instead." That made him pause. He looked at me, really looked. His eyes were swollen, rimmed with red, full of everything he couldn't say. "I don't want to die," he whispered finally. "I just don't know how to live anymore." Those words hit me like thunder. And in that moment, I realized. This wasn't about dying. It was about escaping. Escaping the noise, the pressure, the endless pretending. I held him tighter, rain pouring down on both of us. "You don't have to know how to live, Danny. We'll figure it out together. But you can't disappear like this again. Not like this." He shook his head. "I'm so tired." "I know. But if you give up now, everything you've carried, all that pain, all that love, it dies with you. And I can't live in a world without you in it. He broke then, sobbing, shaking, falling into my arms like a child who'd been brave for too long. I just wanted someone to see me, he whispered. I see you, I said through my tears. I always have. We sat there for what felt like hours, holding on to each other under the storm. The rain washed over us, and for the first time, he didn't hide his tears. He let them fall. And I knew that maybe, just maybe, this was the first step to healing. By the time dawn came, the sky was a pale grey. Daniel leaned against me, half asleep, eyes swollen but calm. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but steady. Let's go home. I nodded, helping him to his feet. As we walked away from the bridge, the river kept flowing. But this time, it wasn't taking him. It was carrying his pain away, piece by piece. The sunrise that morning didn't feel like just light. It felt like mercy. Golden rays slipped through the curtains, touching everything the darkness had left behind. For the first time in weeks, our home was silent. But it wasn't the silence of fear. It was peace. Gentle. Honest. Fragile. Daniel was still asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, breathing evenly. His hair was messy, eyes swollen, but his chest rose and fell softly. Proof that he was still here. Alive. I stood there for a long time just watching him. Every breath he took felt like a gift from God. Every twitch of his hand, every sigh a small victory. When he finally opened his eyes, the first thing he whispered was, "Is it morning already?" "Yeah," I said, smiling through tears. "You made it." We sat together in silence. The rain had stopped. Birds were starting to sing. It felt like the world itself was holding its breath for him. After a few minutes, he said softly, "I don't remember much about last night. Only that I was ready to let go. And then you showed up." "You weren't supposed to be alone," I said. "You never were." He nodded slowly, rubbing his hands together. "I used to think asking for help made me weak. But now I see, pretending I didn't need it nearly killed me." He smiled, a small, shaky smile. "I think I want to live." Tears slipped down my face before I could stop them. "Then that's enough for today," I whispered. "Just wanting to live is enough." Later that morning, we sat with Mom. She held his hands tightly, her eyes red but gentle. "My son," she said, voice trembling. "You don't ever have to carry us alone again. If it gets heavy, drop it. We'll pick it up together." He broke down then, right there in her arms. And for once, no one told him to stop crying. No one said be strong. We just let him be human. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Over the next few weeks, Daniel began therapy. The first session terrified him. He said it felt strange to speak without wearing armor. But he kept going. He started talking about everything. The debts, the silence, the nights he stood on that bridge and wondered if anyone would miss him. His therapist told him something that stuck with him. Men don't need to be heroes. They just need to be heard. After that, Daniel started writing again. Not in his old black notebook, but in a new one, blue, with clean pages and no stains. The first page read, "I am learning to breathe again." Time passed slowly, but gently. The laughter returned to the house, quiet at first, then louder, fuller. Sometimes, Daniel still had bad days. Days when the world felt too heavy. But now, he didn't hide it. He'd walk into the living room and say, "I'm not okay today." And we'd sit with him. No fixing. No judging. Just sitting. And that was enough. One afternoon, Amora showed up. She'd heard what happened from a mutual friend. When Daniel saw her, his eyes filled instantly with regret, with longing, with something like forgiveness. They didn't talk much at first. She just hugged him. And he didn't pull away this time. After a while, she whispered, "I never wanted perfect. I just wanted you." And for the first time, he believed her. That evening, as the sun set, Daniel sat by the window, notebook in hand. He looked peaceful, not because everything was fixed, but because he was finally facing it. He turned to me and said, "You know, I used to think the opposite of pain was happiness. But now I think it's hope. As long as you have hope, You can find your way out. I smiled, tears slipping down my cheeks. And you found yours. He looked out the window, at the fading light, and nodded. Yeah, he said softly. I think I finally did. That night, the house was quiet again. But this time, the quiet didn't scare me. It meant we'd survived. It meant that silence could hold peace again, not pain. And as the moonlight fell gently across Daniel's face, I realized something I'd never forget. Sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is admit he's tired. And sometimes, the most heroic thing he can do is choose to stay. Thank you for watching this story. If it touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. I told stories where every story has a heartbeat. Your support helps me share more stories that heal, inspire, and remind us that we're never truly alone.